Shall I start? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Mushtaq Kemal, head of the Department of the Computer Science and Engineering. Under my supervisions, this an exhaustive exercise that is currently going on for the predictive analysis of the student behavior, which is very much important and requires to be used for the industry and academia, where the behavior of the person plays a very important role. There are the many type of the cause which lead to the poor performance or the underperformance. So this particular talk is related to those part which which is to be shared with you. I am happy to have that part and all those current research work that we have undergone. So please feel free if you have any questions in between. Uh, I would I would like to ask whether this slide is visible.
Yes, sir. Slides are visible.
This one.
Yes, sir. This one too.
Okay, so that's fine. So the emphasis pertaining to this is required because when we have to look for the varieties of the people who are coming. Let us say, take an example of the MNIT, the people across the India visit over here in the different type of the disciplines, and they do have this type of the challenge that they may be not be able to perform as per the expectation, but some other students they are well performing. So what causes this difference, and what are those challenges that need to be made, and how this the behavior of the student and its performance that can be analyzed in such a way that, or using this extended AI tool, machine learning techniques, so that the predictive analysis of that can be made, and the suggestive recommendations based on those analysis part that has to be provided to the mentor or the institute psychiatric or the person who is handling the students. Mostly in our institute, we have a bunch of the student assigned to the one faculty as a mentor. So in that case, having this type of the knowledge in advance, they would be able to understand that where their focus is and what sort of the counseling that is required. And having those type of the challenges in mind, I will give you a very good example pertaining to that what we have achieved using the varieties of the ways. And the challenges are there, so that how and what way that the data corpus that need to be created, and how that has to be used. So pertaining to this, the motivation of this talk is that we require to have a better mechanism of the behavior analysis of the student in such a way that in advance the behavior and the constraint pertaining to that, the environment in which he is living, some better counseling can be made, and the observation pertaining to that is required. And based on that, the performance of the period, in that constant period, the performance of the student can be analyzed so that his overall performance will be maintained. So in that, varieties of the work that has been initiated, but the work that we have initiated is not been there, and that is what the challenges that we have faced. And I will give you that the vast varieties of the samples that we have created and the example related to that, which would be useful for making the predictive model based on the different type of the machine learning models. And we applied the deep learning models with that habit model, with the fuzzy inferences model, fuzzy neural network models, and the decision tree based models and explainable AI based models, where that overall performance of the student data corpus that can be analyzed, and the suggestive output that can be provided by the machines. Based on that, the counseling to the student can be made. So this is what the objective of our of this task is. And as I said that in this higher in the higher education, such type of the challenges becomes more difficult, where the entry into from the different social backgrounds and having the diversities, they require to face the challenges. So they may not be able to understand English, they may not be able to cope up with the students, they may not be able to complete their assignment on time. So based on that, the environment has been changed, the food constraint and the behavior of that person, so that adaptability and acceptability between the between the classmates and the faculty, they have to face those type of the challenges. That how these correlations with them that can be managed in such a way that he should not be having any stress, and he should focus on the better on those academic area rather than the other illicit type of the activities. So pertaining to that, the challenges are there that mostly this dropout rates are increasing, as on this that around 30% of the people who are not able to continue because there would be the multiple number of the strains. Unlike that which has been stated over here, or except one among the 1,000 or 10,000, the one student would be there in our institute who would be having, because of the either the financial constraint or because of the some other institute he might have joined, that might be the reason of the dropout, that he do not want to study over here. Otherwise, most of the cases we have not faced any such type of situation in our institute. So, having said that, in this, the if something like this constraint pertaining to the financial burdens or the some sort of the risk related to the health or some other condition, environment conditions, if that are there, in that case, the psychiatric and the counseling and the student welfare teams, they have to make their intensive measures in order to support the students so that he would not be able to drop out from the institute, or that he would be able to manage that environment. So the objective of this having this type of the constraint and the environment, our objective was that we should require to make such a sophisticated system where we would be able to counsel the system based on that the data, unbiased data that has been provided or that has been taken from the student at the different level of the period, different level or the interval from first year, second year, third year time, so that the progressive analysis of that can be made in such a way that the our AI based model would be giving that how that progress has been achieved, and those missing part that has been well managed, and that excessive part which is diverting his attention would be mitigated. So this is what the objective of our um, work is. And in this, as I said, that the behavior of the student, that is very much important. Like the ethics that are required to be focused into majority of the students, they think that they feel proud if they are abusive. They feel proud if they do smoke and consume this alcoholic or some type of that addictive measures, and their behavior plays a very important role. So wherever you are going, wherever you are presenting, you or having your showing your attendance, you are representing your institute. So in that case, you have to all the time attentive and be focus on that the behavior of the person is being notified and that is being analyzed, and in that case your behavior should be very much ex- uh, 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 in the excellence. I can say that that should be very good, so that the people will appreciate that the person belongs to this institute and having that much of the better personality. So the focus of this research is also, which I am describing over here, gives this that the the person who is representing the institute, the personality of the person also plays a very important role. So if I say that the personality of the person is having three major component or the four major component, the 47% of the personality of the person goes on their dressing sense, the 36% percent of that the personality goes on the gesture and the way of delivering the talk, and the rest of the 16% is that the whatever that the expected outcomes that is being delivered by the person. So only the focus is intensive towards that how that person is good looking and making the better presentation or making that the topics that is being covered by him or her, and that is what you need to focus on that. But having those type of that with in average, but the expensive part of that actually what outcome of your talk is, what outcome of your behavior is, that it should have the better impact, and that is what the emphasis should be, unlike that is currently being used by the majority of the political persons. So in this, our objective pertaining to the behavior of the person requires that the in advance of that predictive performance based on those five different type of the categories: the bad performance, poor performance, average, good, and excellence. And in that case, the holistic approach we do applies in for all the peoples, and they will have to be unbiased pertaining to that the informations they are providing, and the parameters which are to be discussed that involves the academic performance, their social and behavioral background informations, and the way that they do behave. In that case, their gesture, their lifestyle domain that are the part of that the key parameters. Now the having those type of the informations available in advance, which is being asked from the student, we require to go for this recommendation based system, so that what type of the counseling that need to be made, and whether that requires a social counseling or the medical counseling or the some sort of that constant mentorship, so that he need to be in the observations so that he should not be distracted. And in this, the model which we are trying to prepare we are trying to make this as a robust one, which would not only give the better recommendations and the counseling, so that the student or the person who of the institute who, or any other organizations, you would be focused on those type of the area which are missing, and related to that the further counseling can be provided, assistance can be provided, so that he can improve those part. Okay, so in this, the while making such type of the data corpus, we face the challenges having that the small real data set of the 500 individuals would not be sufficient. So we try to use that the smart synthetic data generation techniques, which are used to create the multiple samples for the better analysis. And this data has been used with that hybrid predictive model, combining with the uh, fuzzy neural network with that attention explainable AI, and that is a robust type of the techniques where the intensive uh, feature extraction in the major area among all those variations, 100 different type of the variations pertaining to the 10 different domains we have tried to analyze, and other part like this random forest with that multiple decision trees that are being used based on those different type of the domains which we have tried to cover, and based on that, especially in this, as mentioned earlier, that is sports media, social media, sports and social media, and his behavior like hyperactive or lethargic, those type of the criteria that were taken into the account. So the work that we are I'm discussing over here is that the survey-based analysis where the data corpus has to be created based on the samples of the student that were taken in the real students of the MNIT and other institute, neighboring institute, and because of that limited samples that were collected, we have used the synthetic data using the smart and applied the deep learning and machine learning techniques, and another like this explainable AI, or which includes this the shape and the line which are giving us the better predictive output, and in that it gives a better generalized recommendation system, sorry, personalized recommendation systems based on those data provided by the student. So overall performance, individual performance, collective information, cluster-based informations, where the focus need to be made. So having a computer student, they will have to focus more on the communication and the programming skill part. Other who are student from the different discipline like the civil engineering, their field experience must be more important rather than the programming coding part. So in that case, how much of their attention is, how much they are paying their times, that are those key factors that need to be involved while making such type of the predictive model. So obviously in this, the majority of the other institute, other than the India, because this is we are taking in India, other country are having similar type of that behavior analysis that is not only related to the student who are studying over there in the abroad, but not but to the other peoples who are working there, and they have to meet to the counselor and give their input, and based on that the incentives and their permission to work is being permitted, and they are being allowed to continue, and that plays a very important role. Likewise, the same thing applies in this type of the scenario where the behavior of the student would lead to that whether that is a good student or that is having indulged in the bad activities. So the focus pertaining to that has to be made, and in that case, the personality trait and their behavior and learning analysis style, and what sort of the counseling that need to be made, and if that environment requires to be changed, like removing from the hostel or changing the hostel or changing the batch or changing the mentor, so that the proper counseling can be made. So those type of the challenges are also being included in our work, so that the better such type of the uh, robust system that can be created, and that will be provided to all the academia and higher education institute. Initially, part of that, the pilot work will be initiated in our institute, and then it will be communicated and provided to the other institute. Majority of the other institute director also appreciated and give that this has to be taken into the account, and they would also be happy to have that in their institute. So, in this, the factors which are involved are that the overall CGPA, the progressive analysis of the CGPA of the student that has to be made, the student demographic conditions that are also been taken into the account, As I said, that the environment also plays a very important role, and the psychological behavior that is in that is also an important part. So dedicated psychologist is required to be there in every higher educational institute, which has to give the counseling or that psychological treatment, so that they should have to refrain from the bad habits and work, make it self-control and do their good work. And in this, nowadays, as you may have seen, that the majority of the students have dropped using the hard copy of the book. They are not reading those hard copies of the books or the materials which are provided in the library. Rather than that, they are keen on e-learning basis, and that is providing them with the headache, the changes in their lenses and C place lens type of the conditions that they are facing. And because that the mobile media and the wireless communication media are much prone to giving that bad habits to the student. So the reference and the counseling pertaining to that plays very important role. And pertaining to that, they should also be emphasized to use the sports activity rather than keeping in individual and involved in such type of that mobile-based activities. So, pertaining to this, the model of this to train the system where the higher accuracy is desirable, we try to apply the different type of the regression techniques. In that case, logistic regressions is there, decision tree based regression is there, lasso is there, and log linear method is there when the data corpus is high. So in that case, the larger the accuracy, the better the focus and the attention that could be paid to the student. And that is what the emphasis is, which we have tried to focus and apply this for the different number of the users. So majority of the recent work that is focusing on the coding part, where that annotation is to be provided so that he can write the better coding or the fast coding technique. But they do less focus on their lifestyle and their constraint. Some students are faster in their keypad, some are less, but their work is on that sports and some other uh, area. In that case, their way of writing would not be as much better or faster compared to the other one. So in that case, some analysis on that part has been made, and the other are that which includes the multiple factors, like I have stated, to make the better and accurate predictive output for the student behavior. So, as I said, that there could be the reasons of the overfitting or underfitting if I'm having a small data corpus. So, we require to have the better predictive output. For that, the large data corpus is required. So, there are the two factors that are involved. One is during this training phase, where the machine has to be provided all this data input, and it has to train that to give this corrective predictive output. If the training phase, which will lead to the minimization of the empirical risk analysis, that has to be given to the testing phase, where that structural analysis has to be made and the structural risk has to be mitigated or that need to be minimized. So the two factors are there, that the risk which are involved while during the training part and the risk of that misleading data or that wrong decisions at the training part of the machine. So both of these structural and empirical risks need to be minimized to improve the performance of the system. So pertaining to that, the interpretability is to be there where that the model which we are using, that has to be given that data. Based on that, it has to give a better predictive analysis pertaining to that. Likewise, you may have gone through of Kundli or Janampatri type of that techniques where you can that the person who is well aware about those type of the conditions can give that what sort of the measures that the person need to take into the account for their change in their behavior and the social environment, so that they should not be distracted or their some sort of the performance compromise that should not be there. So so in this, is it visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Each and every slide which I'm mentioning over here, that should be visible. So I'm emphasizing on this part that the the synthetic data, because that need to be there, because this is a progressive and time consuming part to collect the data corpus. So what we have tried to use this oversampling technique synthetically to give us the larger sample size. You can say that this is also a part of this generative techniques where the data corpus can be synthetically updated and created to train the system. So in this, the methodology which we have applied that in the realistic environment, we use the around 200 students data which we have collected with this number of the different domain: academic, demographic, family background, sports, and extracurricular activities. And you can see that the majority of the participants they are belonging to the academia. That these are the essential part of the student. They should be learning or having that. If they are missing, in that case, we force them to go for the or participate in the social activity, to go in the um, street or some other nearby colony and contribute to their social work. We ask them to uh, play and go to the sports and play activities rather than involving only on the mobile systems. And if they are having the stress and depressions, majority of their colleagues, they help them to sort out those problems. And if sometimes the sickness are there, so we invite the parents to be here and ask them that to be with them for some period of time, so that the homesickness can be mitigated. And for the confidence, this is a challenging part. There is a core competency among the student, and there the uh, they are being asked to give the seminar. They are being asked to involve in some sort of the institute activities, so that the better interactions with other people, so they make, and based on that their behavior can be enhanced. And another is this the mobile addiction. This is an important part, because majority of the students now are being addicted to this, and the friendship plays a very important role. If the person who is not having any friend, in that case, that implies that he is in the depression and having a big stress that may be related to the home, or maybe other family background, or some habits that he may be indulged in. And that would lead also to the deterioration in the health. And some other part like this interest, which are also being taken into the account to make that the better analysis of our student behavior. So pertaining to this, we have collected the last data set where the questionnaires has been set for uh, 10 different categories, 10 different questionnaires. The sample of the questionnaires are something like this, where that the mobile and social media addictions, how much they are being interacted and making their time, and the survey for predicting or making the analysis that how much he is being involved. Based on that, the system can give that a predictive output. So as you can see over here, that the sample survey, uh, we have a 10 different variations in that. The majority of the student who have given their scoring around 100% or in that scale of 5, that means they are more involved on those type of the activities, or the overall which has been taken into the account of the data purpose which we have created. So you can see over here that the as you can see this engineering interest, and this is the fourth the friendship part, this is fourth over here, and this sports and the health part, they have given this in this that the uh, their focus or their health is constrained that are more in their mind pertaining to the other objectives. So this is a good signature. So they are conscious related to their health. So likewise, the majority of the people who have shown their interest, and some are having that depression or mobile addiction, and the lacking of the self confidence. These are the major important part which has to be properly analyzed, and based on that, we'll have to make the decision. So this is what the we are pursuing this work for the past for I think more than 4 years that we are that is over while making such type of the better, robust student behavior analysis system. So the main attribution or attributes pertaining to this uh, behavior analysis and the data corpus which we are trying to collect is having those this major type of that components like this academic level, institute level, personal levels, family levels. So all those the subdomain part of that are being included to take into the account to analyze the behavior of the student. So the focus on those the output, unbiased output, which are being taken from the student in the mentorship of the faculty who is counseling them, who are giving us that the corrective assumptions that they are giving us the correct input from their side, and that is what the important factor is. Otherwise, the system would be biased. So, in order to have those type of the constraint of the unbiased type of the situations, we do require to have the proper mechanism for the better analysis with that the key roles that is referred to as the niche roles that are to be taken into the account in that the minority class, or some of them which are been there that are referred to as a majority class, where the emphasis are on the focus on their study and the getting the better job. So some of the students who are lagging behind are referred to as a majority class, where that focus has to be taken into the account. Likewise, I state one important part that a finishing school was made or created by the government of India way back in the 2006. I was the part of that. In that, the majority of the NIT and IIT, along with the industry, Infosys, Cognizant, and TCS, and the Nextcom. They were the part of that where they have put this intensive, or I can say that extensive exercise that need to be made by the academia to train the student who have not yet been placed by the industry. So industry gave those gap area and where that focus need to be made, and we train those systems who have enrolled in the that finishing school part and the better and all majority of them still some of them could not be able to compete that part, but majority of those who have participated in that finishing school part were selected and well placed in the industry. So similar type of the focus would be there if the some bias would be mitigated and the focus of the underpraised, under depressions, which are poor in condition and that has to be upgraded. So institute has to take into the account those type of the recommendations which has been provided by such type of the tools which we are preparing, and that would give us the give them the better focus on those students who seek the help from the institute side, that they should be well placed. So, as I said, that the synthetic data is to be created, and here the focus has been made that there should not be much deviations to make a distinctions, but that the key part of that values or that clusters that has to be made based on their focus on the area, which we have divided in 10 different type of the categories, and based on that which are giving that the focus of the higher performance, and which are giving us we're giving them the underperformance. Those type of the key factors are taken into the accounts and the attention has to be paid. So in this, the uh, the oversampling using this randomized distribution that has to be taken into the account, and this k nearest neighbor techniques that is also been used over the sample of the data. So this data is which we have synthetically generated along with this 26 number of the student to create that environment where the system can be analyzed. So in this, all this exhaustive, uh, the randomized approach that has been applied instead of the brute force, where the collective of the samples from the 10 different sections that have been randomly chosen, and try to look into that whether that are overfitting or the underfitting, and giving that predictive output. So as you can see over here that the model which is created using this SMOT, where the distribution pertaining to that people who are having the participated in the hackathon, they are they need not require to be trained better because they have already undergone, and some like this who are having the better coding skills that need not require to be focus into, or that because they are already been there, but the other who are lacking are having that they require to uh, play more in order to make the better coding skill. The focus is required to be paid, so that they will have to work hard in that very area. Likewise, that's the two important factor is that whether they are having the better communication skill, whether they are having the good coding skill part, and based on that, the industry take that into the account that they are good in the coding and good in the communication, and have well participated in the different type of the code competitions or the hackathon type of the activities. and that overall performance of that can be measured in that way, so that uh, the counseling can be made, and we'll have to give them the better recommendation. Likewise, this the comparison, the uh, matrix that has been shown over here, which is giving that the balance of this is that those who are making the better performance are need not require us to pay more attention on that, and they are well performing. The other one who are having those type of the part which are lagging, in that case, they require us to have the performance issues which need to be managed. So the balance on that part is required to give them the better attention using the counseling system. So, as I said that in order to prepare this data corpus, the five different type of the categories that we have taken into the account: bad, poor, average, good, and excellent. So these are the five total categories which are being used for the 10 different type of the domains with the 10 set of the questionnaires pertaining to that, focusing on that, the overall predictions of that, whether that is giving the uh, average or the good or better performance or the underperformance. So in that case, because of this, while making this training, the normalization is to be required, and we use this normalization formula where the minimal and maximal exposure pertaining to that area of the domains that has been taken, and the factor of that has been taken into the account. So as I said that in order to, two things are there in this machine learning part. One is that empirical risk, and another is the structural risk. Empirical implies when we are training the system. Structural risk is that when we have trained the system. So how much the data that we'll have to use for the training, and how much we'll have to use for the testing purpose. So obviously the variations of this will also plays a very important role. Likewise, some of the researchers use 70-30. In that case, 70 is the data which is being used for the training, and the 30% is used for the testing purpose. But the testing of the data would be less with the better performing, better training. So two things would be there. One is that if I'm using the less number of the data for training purpose, in that case, that would be referred to as an underperforming. Other is that if I'm making this 95% or more than 90% of the training data and less number of the training testing data, in that case there will be overfitting or the biasing towards that part. It will always be given that the bias result. So the balance is required in the most of the cases. It is split into the 80% of the training and the 20% of the testing. So variations with this also we will be trying to make with that comparative analysis, that how much the system is underperforming and better performing. Uh, my research scholar is also with me, and with him I will be stating this, presenting this. So in this, Agam, you have to make this part also with that the comparative chart with the variations of 70-30, 80-20, 90-10, where we can be able to make that the better predictive output, that how much this deviation is. So while making such type of that data corpus and available with us, which we have put in the machine, and now that the major part of this machine learning algorithms that comes. So in this, what happens that we require to train the system. So there are the two different type of the techniques. So am I visible? Am I visible?
Yes, sir. You are visible.
No, my face or my that is visible. If it is not, in that case, kindly. give me that I would also be able to see myself.
Yes, sir, you are visible also.
Acha, okay. But on my screen, I'm not being able to see myself. So the thing is that I just require to focus on the two important thing over here, that this machine learning is having the two different type of the part. One is that without data, I can train the systems to do that AI part or that automatic work that can be initiated or that can be done. Do you have some example pertaining to this? That we need not require data, but the system is able to do whatever the task that has been assigned automatically, uh, which need not require data to train it. Anyone? कुछ तो बोलना पड़ेगा, किसी को कुछ भी बोलो, बोलना जरूरी है. अच्छा, चैट पे आ रहा है. हाँ. Okay. No, but the question which I asked, no one has given the answer. Okay. Anyway, I will give you this answer. कि एक रोबोट है, मैंने एक रोबोट बनाया. आई हैव मेड दिस ट्रेजेक्टरी ऑफ द पाथ based on that sensors where that has to traverse and which direction it has to move. So only that input is required. It need not require any data corpus to be trained to perform those types of tasks. Okay, so the object location has been identified, the size and thickness of that has been specified, and the force that is to be used in order to pick that up and place to the another place that can be specified, and based on that it will work. So we need not require the large data set to perform those type of the operation. So this implies that we are having those type of the categories where the system need not require to be used to train with the data, but with that approach or algorithms based on that, it will perform the perfectly, and we can use that. And likewise, the robotic systems are being used in the warehouse, in the different places. Other ways is that where we do require to have the data corpus, based on that, we'll have to train the system. So the two things are there, that I have trained the system with those type of that logistic regression. So if the variations or the deviation is there, in that case, I can change that the the values of my decision making. Based on that, I can say that this is the better predictive output that has been taking based on those key values. So the majority of the values which are being inputted, based on that the expected output should be there. If slightly variation is, if it has been there, in that case the variations of that can be taken into the account with the changing of the slope, so that the majority of the direction, a majority of that the output can be accepted. And that is what that logical regression is here, that if it happens that the the output is completely varying and that is not coming in that boundary region, in that case what sort of the measure that need to be applied. So normally in that the regressions or the banana curve which are being used in order to, or the log linear method that is to be used, in that case some of that are out of the boundary. So we require to train the system, implying that if something wrong which is being categorized as the other one or other part or the other cluster category, in that case the penalty should be there. So in that case the lasso method is being used, where that the penalty clause are required to be added, so that the system would not do this that misrepresentation of the data. and this is the machine learning technique. Now, another part is this decision tree. So, as the name implies, that it combines the multiple number of the tree based on that the input which are taken into the account for the different domains. Like the as I said that we are having the 10 different domains and pertaining to that the 10 different questions which are being asked within that 10 different domains. The tree the decision tree pertaining to that domains are being created based on that input which has been provided by the student, and collective of this tree which are giving that which focus he is having more, and based on that the decision has to be taken. So the collective information of these tree are taken into the account, and this has to be done rigorously with the multiple number of the time to mitigate the randomized error, and that will give us the better outcome with that better predictive solution, and that lead to give us the better decision, and that is what this why this decision tree is. And uh, and the random forest technique implies that all these decision trees are being combined together and making those decisions, which I have stated it. Another factor is this support vector machine. This is a classical pattern which was used earlier. I presented this for the gate analysis way back in 2005 for using this support vector machine of the human gate analysis. So, but the limitation with this support vector machine is that it is one-to-one type of that mapping techniques which has to be used. So, in that case, that the sampling size need to be large, and the kernel which is to be used that has to be taken into the account pertaining to the type of the decision which has to be taken. So, in that case, if the kernel is wrong, kernel or the decision making part, if it has been wrong, in that case we would not be able to use that properly. So this is what the limitation is, and mostly this kernel vector support vector machine for the non-linear data is very cumbersome, and that lead to the wrong decision. So it is a better for the linear data separation, but it is not sufficient or good enough for the non-linear separable data, and that requires the better alternate mechanism like the naive Bayes and k nearest neighbors. So naive Bayes implies that the predictive output which has been there already, and based on that the if the supervised data is available, in that case we can categorize them based on that a multiple number of the clusters that to whom this particular input data belongs to, and that can be placed over there. So, and if the categorization has not yet been done, in that case, or the classification of that is not yet been done, in that case, each and every one of that is need to be classified based on that naive Bayes technique. So in that, that plays a time for the classification, the larger amount of the times that would be taken to take those data corpus and categorize them well. And once that data has been labeled or that tagged or that categorized, and based on that the clusters have been made, and that may be of multiple, or that may be of the two symbols, two variations. Likewise, we have this 10 different variations. So the 10 different sort of the clusters would be there. So based on that, the decision has to be taken that to whom that need to be there. So the feature extraction pertaining to that is required, and that plays a very important role. That which of that is having that more emphasis, other is not. In that case, what sort of the mechanism that we require to make. So in that case, the perceptrons and the boosting mechanism are required to enhance those parts which are compromised, and the focus has to be taken in those areas. So take an example of this logistic regression. As I said, that it is a core concept of the statistical analysis where we require to go for this better classifications. So linear implies this x and y direction, based on X value, the expected Y value should be there. Based on the next X value, expected Y value should be there. And this the linear graph based on that slope or the output value that should be there. If slightly, if the variation is there, in that case we should have to tilt that so that the majority of this output that should be matched, so that the predictive output can be better analyzed. So in that case, the variations are there. But sometimes, like in the SVM, like in the lasso method, if that plane is not giving that output, I can shift that to the another uh, with that penalty clause. Okay, so if the y value, if say something is x, is 1, and y is equal to ax plus c. So c may be I am varying, that means that I am shifting the plane from one place to the another plane so that majority of this y value can be matched. And that is what the cases that need to be there in that last method. Likewise, the penalty clause that is also the major part of the support vector machine, which has to be taken into the account if the data is mismatching and that is not in that the linear separable data. So yeah, in this we require us to focus on those type of the test cases the where the performance of the system can be managed in such a way that all these different type of the classification techniques that can be combined together and give us the better predictive output. Am I visible? You're not connected. Okay. So the decision tree is, as I said, that it is a non-parametric supervised learning technique where the tree structure are being used, and in that they will be using they will be used to give that predictive output. So the collective decision of all this decision tree are has to be taken, and in this the nodes which are having those type of the features and giving that the based on those features we require to make that the unlikeliness would be minimal and the likeliness of that is required to be taken into the account. So that means that any entropy which is a non-predictive type of the output, if that has been taken, that has to be mitigated. So the key component part of this decision-making tree is that we require to go that regressively for making the multiple decision tree, where it should not be the underfitting or the overfitting, and the mitigations of the unlikeliness would be there, which is referred to as an entropy, has to be taken into the account, and multiple such type of that regressions has to be made so that we can make the better decision. So in that, all those collective features based on that decision tree are required to be taken into the account and put as a random forest. Random forest implies that we are having the multiple number of the decision trees and that are being taken into the account. So the majority of the decision which has been made by the decision trees, based on that the outcome has to be taken for the consideration. The output may be also of multiple types. In that case, the majority of the vote and for the final decision based on those uh, multiple functional output, the features which need to be taken into the account, which is referred to as a robustness over here, that will give us the better predictive output, and we can say that it is an accessible AI type of the framework which can be used for the predictive output for the educational system. So the SVM is having a limitations that we may not be able to get that kernel, and the kernel decision based on that kernel plays a very important role. If a slightly variations of the parameter is in there, in that case the output would be varying. चाय नहीं गर्म पानी थोड़ा सा कृष्णा so that is there. So in that case we require to, and that is why you can see that this support vector machine is less being used in the machine learning techniques. It was initially exhaustively being used, but now we are having the better uh, uh, better type of that supervised learning techniques available, where the large computational systems are required with the large data corpus. So having the data corpus available with the robust systems, we can exhaustively use those machine and to give us that better and the faster output. So machine learning part with that the large data set to mitigate this empirical risk, implying that the training risk has to be minimal. So during this training of the data, where the new input is to be provided, that will give us the corrective output. So naive is the, as you know, that it is a classifier where we require to apply the classifications to make the different clusters of the information and tag them or label them or mark them, so categorize them based on that. And a normal scenario is that while making this type of the naive-based technique, we require to use a large data corpus with that multiple clustering system, and having those type of the classified data available with us, we can apply this for the deep learning or the neural network based type of the learning techniques. So in that case, automatically those features which are being made or used for the classifications that can be easily identified and exhaustively being used in the neural network, CNN based type of the networks, where those only key features are required to be taken into the account, and that will give us the predictive output. Now, I said the two things over here, that while this naive base, if the data is not classified, we require to classify them, we require to cluster them. So classification is very much important. Now the type of the data may be varying. I may be having the text data, audio, video, and the image. So variations of this data are there. Their key features would also be different. And if this multiplex data, variations of the data, if combined together and being use, in the case it becomes an exhaustive, difficult, and a complex one to make some sort of that decision making, that whether that is a unbiased or biased or the correctives, and what sort of the decision that need to be taken. So we have to be very cautious while handling the data. So in this, the key nearest neighbor is the classical approach. In this, the cluster which we require to make and the variations among them is required to be taken into the account. The k is required to be constant to determine that how many nearest neighbors which are similar to their and can be combined together based on the features, and that can be separated apart. So in that the decision can be taken into the account using the Euclidean distance or the nearest approach which are been there. Now taking into this Euclidean distance to make a better separation, what should be the criteria? If suppose am I if I am uh, visible, please look over here. ये एक पैड है मेरे पास में, ओके, चैट चैट बॉक्स नजर गया, हाँ, प्लीज समवन टेल मी you are hearing, listening and seeing me. Hello, hello. हाँ, अब यहाँ देखो, जब आपने के नियरेस्ट नेबर या मशीन लर्निंग जिसने भी पढ़ा है उनको के नियरेस्ट नेबर पढ़ाया जाता है। अब देखिए कि if I choose this, that this boundary of this regions I do requires to take into the account. So the boundary region or region of interest first I will have to create that this is the region from where I have to collect the data. And among them I will require to look only for those which are having the similar type of features, which are or the I will require to make the cluster among them. So what should be the criteria? So the criteria should be that this first I require to take those nodes which are far apart from each other, not in between. Like this boundary, last of this which are near to this, last from this part which are near to this, last from this part which are near to this. So the k distance from this node which I am trying to create, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are the boundary region nodes which are being used because these are having the longest distance apart from each other. Are you getting my point? So this is not been taught while discussing this k nearest neighbor, and randomly that has been decided that the key is taken here, here, here. But if we are taking that the far distance apart from each other, in that case we can make the better clustering, better classifications, and the separation of the data. Is it clear? I'll put this in the chat box. Anyone who is having the audio features? Am I visible or audible? मुझसे पूछो भाई. Yes, sir. Question. Okay, KNN algorithm by itself will select those or we have to mention. See, this is a big concern that when we require to decide what would be the K value. Okay, so the K means that the cluster size or that the nearest neighbor, how many that you require to make, and that would be constant. Another is that this is the algorithmic part which will have to taken into the account that it has to consider those which are far apart. So the Euclidean distance pertaining to those nodes which are the most distance apart, that has to be taken into the account. Either you require to mention that specifically with that among them which one is having the larger distance, they would be the key or the cluster node, and based on that the nearest neighbor algorithm has to be applied. So likewise, if you make in that case you would be able to make the better classification. Is it clear? Okay, good. So now this the machine learning model, which is the gradient boosting mechanism, where that the models are of the variations like the sequentials or random functions that are required to be taken. So typically that uses the decision tree criteria, and we require to follow those with that the predictive accuracy with that higher number of the variation, multiple number of the times we require to perform those type of the regressive techniques to make the optimized outcome. So why do we require this randomness? Why do we require the multiple number of the times that we should go for that? This is because these algorithms are heuristic in nature. Heuristic implies that the output would not be the same. I may be having a local optimal solution, but the global optimal solutions may be there. In that case, the variations of that, the underperformance or the poor performance in between, so that would be they required until all those data should be taken for considerations or that has been exhausted, and we have to repeat that multiple number of the times. And when we go for that, that would give us that, like we have seen that in the simulated annealing algorithms, that the faster exponentially we may reduce, and randomly we choose the data from the different clusters and apply that in our approach and perform that operation in the 10 number of the times. Say in that case uh, the 2 raised to the power minus n would be there, so 10 is there. So in that case, the 1,000 times the less chances would be there, say in order to get any error, and that is what the acceptability of that output would be there. And that is why we require to go for this regressive approach to perform the multiple number of the time, such type of that exhaustive machine learning model testing. And in this, as I said, that this multi-level perceptron or the that are there, where we require to have the artificial neural network techniques. Now there are the multiple number of the types of this neural network techniques are there. Neural network implies that it is a supervised learning. The labels are being made. The classification of that is there. Features are required to be extracted automatically by the network, and that has to be output given as an output that these are the key features. I will give you this example that one of my scholar who is working uh, in the oral cancer detection, in that the images are being used in order to identify that whether that is a malignant or benign. Among them, there are the 96 number of the different features. Based on that, the decision that the machine is required to be trained, and it has to minimize with that seven or nine. I think nine number of the features that has been reduced, and that was giving that a similar type of the output which are being used with that exhaustive number of the features. So all the features and this minimal feature both are giving the same result. And this is what the machine learning is, that reducing those features and giving that the higher accuracy that as per that predictive output, if it has been there, in that case my machine would be fast, efficient, and robust enough so to make the decision. And this is what the operation should be, or that the criteria should be for the better classifications and regression techniques. And likewise, over here, that there's some results which we are showing over here with that performance measure. I will enlarge here this slide. So you can see over here that the classification algorithm of the student data set uh, using this logistic regression and the naive base. So you can see over here that the accuracy are higher in the logistic regression, but some of them are underperforming over here because two, three things are there, that the precision recalls and the F measure. Based on that the uh, data features which we are applying. If the precision is wrong, if the recall which is a sensitivity or making the falseness is high, in that case my F measure or the overall score would be poor. What is desirable is that I do require to have this the precision should be high, and the recall should be minimal, and the sensitivity that is specificity which should be high, so that the predictive output would be better. So this is the initial part of that part which is there, and you can see over here that some of this decision making criteria is giving that better performance, like here for the decision making, for the accuracy, precision, and recall. And the machine learning variation of this machine learning algorithms that are being applied. So here, this is the initial part which are giving not that specific Huh. So this is what that the chart, the separated part of the chart for the different approaches which we have applied. Now, another is that we do require to go for the genetic algorithms where the mutation of those uh, part which are strongly or the strong features that are there only that need to be taken into the account, and based on that we require to take the decision. Another is a particle song optimization.
Sorry to disturb you, sir. Your screen is not visible.
Oh, अच्छा वो वापस वो हुआ था ना, रिकॉर्डिंग इज बीन शेयर्ड.
वो अभी बन रही है.
Maybe that one, that might be the reason. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir. It's
हाँ.
visible.
तो ये ग्राफ देखा था, ये वाला, ये टेबल नजर आई थी,
Yes, sir.
है ना? This is already I have covered, you know, and pertaining to that, this line graph is also there in the separation of this accuracy specificity that is also been there. It is the same part which has been mentioned over here. So in that case, normally, there are the multiple such type of that supervised learning approaches are there, where the decision has to be taken based on the genetic approach, that those key features and that the strongest part of that feature. In when I talk about a system design part, I'll give the multiple examples. Like in the system design part, if I require to make a system, in that case there would be the many such type of the circuit which are being there, but they if they need not require to be considered, still we will get the output. So likewise, we would be having those type of the features which are there, but they are not the key features, we can omit them. So likewise, in that the feature extraction of the human gait analysis, feature extraction of the face recognition system, feature extraction of the pitch and voice of the volume and the frequency of the person, and what type of the part which can be omitted and what are those part which are to be accepted. In that case, we apply the FIR or IR filters separate them in the better visualization of the frequencies of the audio video system. Likewise, in the genetic algorithms, we require so those type of the features which are very much important. Now, in the facial recognitions, we have this 9 different type of the points, which are only the key features, and the focus on them is required to be made. So rest of them can be mitigated. Still, we would be able to recognize that this person is this belonging of that minimal number of the features. Likewise, but the constraints are there. I repeat that the constraints are there. मैं इसको थोड़ा सा minimal कर देता हूँ. Constraints are there so that I can. This is what, because I want to see that if there is any message from the participant side is there. तो मैं ये कह रहा था कि मेरे पास में कोई इंफॉर्मेशन है, उस पर मैं मशीन लर्निंग अप्लाई कर रहा हूँ. I do require to make the decision in pertaining to that, whether that decision is correct or not. So the feature extraction of that plays a very important role. Now, if I am having those key features and pertaining to that, how much that related output would be based on those type of the key features if I'm combining them together in making the decision. So in that case, the genetic algorithm is that based on that mutation is there. Particle song optimization is based on that behavior, that the collective behavior of the systems where that majority of the decision is taking place, that part of that is to be taken into the account. So basically, this is a ant colony optimizations, or that the part which has been traversed by the ant to reach to the food corpus where they find. So in that case, they put their fem, femino, क्या कहलाता है? Femur, furlongs across that area or the path they are traversing, and based on their smell and identification, the rest of the ants will follow the path. And that is what this particle optimization is, farm optimization technique is, that the path may be a difficult one or the lengthy one, but among them, if someone who gives this the lesser part, that would be followed, and based on that, the multiple decisions which are having the larger size of the neurons that are available within that area. And that is what the key factor is. Likewise, this nature inspired algorithm, many such types of algorithms are there. Just we are just focusing on that. So you can see over here that the based on this evolution technique of and the logistic regressions, if that has been applied, we are getting the better outcome compared to the other. So you can see over here that the sensitivity has been increased with that linear regressions, accuracy is there, and the other part which is also required to be considered, like the regression technique, I will try to mention over here. In that case, important factor pertaining to the classification algorithms are that accuracy, sensitivity, specificity, precision, and recall. So in that, this recall is this the specificity, and that is to be minimal, but the F score is also the same if we are having that the similar type of the accuracy and sensitivity. Uh, okay, so just hold on. Sensitivity and specificity क्या होता है?
सर सेंसिटिविटी मतलब डेटा हल्का सा चेंज करने पर रिजल्ट कितना ज्यादा चाहिए
नहीं, गलत नहीं बोलूं. No, I should not be wrong in that specification. That is why I just make the clarification. So I'm correct in that sense that this is the correct one. So we require to have this deep learning technique where the large data corpus, trained data corpus, or labeled data corpus is available, and the data may be non-linear pattern. In that case, the multiple uh, regression techniques that need to be applied, and the best among them is required to be taken into the account. So as I mentioned earlier that the SVM is not sufficient for the non-linear separable data, and and there the constraint is that if the plane is not easily separable in the two-dimensional data, likewise, look over here. Am I repeatable? दिख रहा है ये चीज? Am I visible? हाँ. अब ये जो चीज है, इसमें आप देखो कि ये माउस है, ये इसके अंदर है. When I am using this on this projection, vertical projection, in the case, this would be considered as a in between this non-separable part. Among them, this is the part boundary region, and I am having this mouse over here. But if I change this plane, so this is what presently you are seeing. Just hold on. Thank you. Okay, so I was stating about this, that you are seeing this one. Okay, so here when we see this uh, in this direction, both of these are combined together and we cannot separate them. But if I use this orthogonal or separable of the data like this or this, in that case, the plane is moved. One plane is separated from the other. So I have used the two different planes for each of this different type of the data. Now these two data are, or they both are separable and that can be easily identified. Is it clear? So the non-linear separable data can be separated if I change the plane or change that. So that can be in the elliptical part, that can be in the two-dimensional part, variations of that can be there. So how to do that is based on that the machine learning techniques, varieties of the ways are there, where in the SVM we use this different kernel for the different data set for making them separable. Now here the complex models are there where the challenges are there, that how can we separate them, and the multi-dimensional data sets are there. In the case, multiple type of the separations with the fragmentation among them are required to be made, and based on that the hierarchy can be created, and the classification based on that hierarchy can be generated. So this is what that the convolution neural network is. So convolution implies the mask. Okay, so how many number of the mask that is to be used in order to make that the number of the uh, times that you require to do that, and how to perform those type of the operations. So how many number of that layers that would be, and how what sort of the mask that you require to use. Based on that, the layers would be there, and based on that, the classifications can be there. So now the CNN, sometimes it has been observed that the people use one-dimensional CNN. So in that case, the filtering cannot be applied because that is of the single type with the multiple number of the type of the data. I repeat, the multiple number of the type of the data, single filtrations would not be sufficient. And how do you provide that convolutions in that? So I think that has to be created into the two-dimensional array and then apply that to make the better feature extraction and decision making. So in that case, the pooling of that layers are required. So how many layers would be there? So larger the layer, the better the analysis would be. But if the key features are already been extracted, in that case, the dimension of that can be reduced with the better classifications and the suggestive output. So in that case, the probabilistic output would be high in order to get the proper result. So in that case, when we try to apply this deep learning, we're using the CNN to validate the data with the higher accuracy. Here we have gained this 81% of the accuracy that has been achieved. And in this, the another aspect of this is that some of the variations should also be applied. One is that I have to apply penalty just because you have done this. I will not be happy. You have this penalty. Okay. So ये दंडित करना एक clear classification हो जाता है to make this strict distinction between the two type of the data. If somebody which reached the boundary, out of the region, out of the features, penalty clause should be there, and that should never to be happen again. Another is that we should go for some sort of the flexibility that has to be taken into the account. With that, probability functions so that it may also be within that particular range, and that case should also be considered. Likewise, there's more number of the rules, if that are being defined in order to train the system, we would be having the better outcome or better result comparative to this strict type of the natures which are being used in the regressive analysis. Now here, the things which I am referring over here is the fuzzy based inference system. So in this fuzziness, which is also referred to as a feed-forward neural network, where the the fuzzy inferences are to be used based on that rule base with that weight, their weightage, and predefined rules are being used to define that this particular features would come in this category, and that can also be the part of the other one, and the range of that is been defined with a certain threshold. Based on that, the decision can be made. So this is what you may find nowadays being categorized and being used, that the larger this or the higher number of this probability functions if that are being applied exhaustively among the set of the data corpus or the data input, if it is being applied, in that case the probability of choosing them without a selective features would be higher, and then the decision can be taken into account based on those features. What I am referring is the quantum computing part. कि क्वांटम कंप्यूटिंग में तीन वेरिएबल्स हैं, जैसे मान लीजिए तीन इनपुट है n1 n2 n3, और n1 n2 n3 के कॉम्बिनेशन में ये फीचर्स के तौर पर ले रहा हूं, तो मेरे पास में 0 0 से 1 1 1 तक के होते हैं. तो इन बिटवीन देयर वुड बी द सम all three features or two features or one features among them, and the combination of that would be there for all the different variations. Now among them which are being there with that, based on that the decision can be taken that whether that should be taken into the account or not. If the corpus size is too big, 2 raised to the power 256, that is the maximum number of that data set, and the brute force pertaining to that, if it is been applied, in that case normal system would not be able to perform those type of the operations. In that, the quantized system where all those the combinations permutation combinations, so that has to be applied, and the collective measures based on that would be taken into the account, and based on that the decision can be made. So that is what this quantum computing is. So likewise, you can have similar type of the features while using this fuzzy inference system. This implies that I should be having इसमें मैं विजिबल हो रहा हूँ. हाँ, अच्छा ये यहाँ पे विजिबल हो रहा
सर नॉर्मली भी आप विजिबल है,
अच्छा
तो ऊपर आता है.
अच्छा ऊपर आता है.
हाँ,
ओके
इसको फुल स्क्रीन पे लेंगे तो भी.
हाँ, ओके, थैंक यू. So in this fuzzy inferences implies that this is a rule-based type of the technique. The larger number of the rules, the inferences would be better. Inferences implies the intelligence that is being taken by the systems to make the decision based on the applied input and the rules associated with that, whether that matches on that or not. So accuracy of that would be there if we apply those type of the features, and that would be and here there also the weight pertaining to that that can be decided based on the threshold values. I may be choosing some sort of that minimal or maximal or values, और उसमें मैं categorize कर सकता हूँ poor, medium, large, very large or huge. Based on that I can make some decision. इसी तरीके से दूसरे फीचर के लिए वहां पर मैं कि इसका ये फीचर अलग अलग पैरामीटर उसके लिए अप्लाई कर सकता हूँ. That depends on that the type of the data which you are using and the type of the decision that need to be made. तो उस केस में मेरा predictive output based on that would be far better compared to that the regressive method which are there, and that is why this fuzzy inferences is better in many cases while using in the machine learning techniques. Another is this that the attention method, along with that the fuzzy inference is referred to as a ReLU method, where the parameters are being there that the dense attention or self-attended and some neurons that have been defined based on that these five performance categories which we have classified we can use. So you can and here the deep learning or the machine learning models where the convolution method where the features are automatically required to be extracted by the system, and that will take more time. If the features are already been identified, in that case the task become much faster. So in that case the feature extraction or feature enhancement are the important factor. So one important factor which I would like to state is that applying, or if it is a image part, in that case likewise over here that it is having the many number of the dots. You can see that majority of the tools which are available in the camera, they remove these type of the tools. But if I'm using this FIR filter or the IR filter, in that case the 256 image can be enhanced to the 512, or 512 image can be enhanced to the 720 pixel image. In that case, this exposure of these small variations that can also be highlighted and that can be used to give that better informations, and based on that the decision can be made. And this is what being used in the medical imaging. This is what has been used in the conversion of the image from the color image to the grayscale, and highlighting those features which are very much essential and important. Based on that, the boundary is to be decided. I will hold for the 5 minutes. 5 मिनट का ब्रेक ले रहा हूँ, मेरे को खांसी होने लगी है। Shall we start?
Share.
It is shared. So shall we start?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So the one question which was raised, I saw that in the chat, where it is.
Down side.
ये
नहीं उसके right उसके right
उसके right ये that perceptron accuracy is double. This is from by the question raised by the Persis Sula. Actually, that perceptron, which implies that the neuron which are being used in the machine learning, that keeps that record of the informations. So in that case, it happens while training the system. If that already that perceptron knows that information and which requires to we get only enhanced, in that case it would vary the weightage. So the criteria of selections of that features would depend on that. If that has already been identified and trained, in that case it is not required to be further emphasized, because that would lead to the biasing. So otherwise, that the perceptrons who has already identified and used that, and it can only, if the feature is having some imbalance, in that case it can vary the weight to make that more acceptable, and that is why this accuracy is increased. Is it clear? I hope I have given this answer. Yeah. Okay. So the thing is that now the further extended part of this, which I would like to cover, is that the combining of this deep learning and machine learning combinations using the CNN and the machine learning. Here, that the behavioral neural network part that we have gone through for the system, where that what we have done over here, that having a data corpus created using the smart, we have made the multiple classifications or the classifiers, which is referred to as a BNet or the behavioral network. So there are the some majority of the classes, some of them are equal and some of are in the minority class. That means that variations among them. And the small data is there, which based on this CNN, which we apply, that categorizes, enhances those data corpus which are in the balance mode. So all these balances pertaining to that are in there among those different type of the classifications that we have done. In that case, based on this the data corpus, we applied this deep learning technique with that 500 number of the epochs, number of the times that has been done. In that case, the convergence that has been achieved nearly around the 93%. That means that the system is well been trained and it is unbiased and giving that expected type of the output which is to be given by the system. So having a varieties of the features and the accuracy pertaining to that, if it is been higher, or the accuracy we would be trying to reach that to the 90 more than 95-96% in the future, that would give us the better accuracy. So again, that would be depend on that the exact data which we would be collecting from the student and rigorously apply to the to the system with the variants of the machine learning technique, we would be able to get the better output. So in that case, this this is an important aspect that whether the student seek an immediate attention based on that the part where that high triggering is there. So the risk part pertaining where the mentorship is required, where the psychiatric treatment is required, where the psychological support is required, the system should be giving that a better prediction. So what we seek that the periodically such type of the input from the student child should be there so that we would be able to manage that properly. So that is what that the constant attachment of that should be there, and based on that the decision has to be taken or the attention need to be paid to the among the student. So the explainable AI is another good techniques which are being used for making a better decision making. In that case, it is a multifaceted model which provides the better predicting, and in that case the random forest technique is there. The attention weights are being used in order to improvise the features and the this explainable individual and local predictions using this line export is there, which are important factors or the useful techniques which are being used. So, Shapely adaptive explanation, the SHAP, is a game theory based type of the approach. In this game theory is a very classical example, so where right now it is not a sufficient part of the times which has been assigned to me. Otherwise, I would give that how we have applied for the uh, SDN based network to train them and making the load balancing using this machine learning technique for the support SDN, that is the software defined network. So mitigations of the attack, optimizing the network, providing the balance load among the nodes, and uh, taking the features of the each and individually node which has been connected, and use based on that the decision is to be made that which one has to be provided to whom. Those type of the part which we have gone using this machine learning techniques. Likewise, the game theory based techniques which we also have applied in this training the behavioral system for the student behavior analysis, and this is a regressive techniques which focuses overall features for the entire data set. So in this, as you can see over here, that the shape is the plot graph which are providing using this random forest, focusing those features which are on the top, and the other less one are there which are the less predictive or less likely to get occur. So which are having the higher predictions, higher focus on that, will have to choose, and based on that the decision has to be taken. So quite similar to that, the as you can see over here that the dots indicate that the accurate predictions of that output, giving that where that the focus is more, the other one are giving that the less focus has been there. So those constraints which are less and the high, the mapping and the comparisons for all of that, if that are being taken into the account, we would be able to get the more predictive output, so that the better assessment of the student behavior can be made. So in that, this explainable AI is a better alternative which we have tried to use for the better predictions and the depiction of the of the behavior of the student. Based on that, the decision can be made. So likewise, these attentions which are being used are giving this the stress of social media and sports. Likewise, that how much the weightage are there, and the students who are participating in those type of the areas. So the weightage pertaining to that, the variations of them are there. That how much the weightage these are there. Some of them are giving the higher weightage compared to that, and less weightage to the teaching part or paying attention on the academia. The challenges are there, so that need to be controlled, and the mentorship of pertaining to that are required. Now, again, in this part, that when we try to use this the line model, in that case the individual predictions of the persons can be made. Now in that case, the localized predictive model pertaining to that the focus area where he is attending more, immediately that attention has to be paid, and the messages should be communicated to them that you should not focus on this, and divert, you are distracting from your attention from the key component, key part, and rather than you are going to the other uh, destructive part or the destructive domains which should not be there. So having those type of that predictive models in advance, and knowing that the behavior of the person and immediate attention if it is been required. So in that case, this system would be able to give that specific attention, so that he should not be able to go for that the destructive model or destructive domain that would lead to the poor performance. So likewise, having those type of other scenario which are being used exhaustively, the system we are trying to make the more predictive and accessible way, so that the AI, generative AI, would give that all those fragmented analytical information so pertaining to that different domains, and would give us that combined consolidated information. Based on that, the precise and corrective suggestive output would be delivered to the mentor, who would be individually assisting the student, so that he should be not be able to distract himself. So here are some other models where that performance are evaluated with this the XAI framework, where the fuzzy inferences neural network with that attention models are being used in order to emphasize that how much the system is accurately predicting and giving us the better accuracy, better and accurate output. So, in the finally, that the FNN is giving the higher accuracy compared to that random forest, but it requires to have the better refinement and variations with the data set and the large data corpus if it is been available. So in that case, we would be having the better accuracy compared to that existing one. So in that case, currently this the fuzzy inferences is giving us the better outcome compared to the other one, but the random forest is also an efficient one. And once the data corpus would be sufficient or the large enough with that variation, so we would be able to make the better predictive output. So that the levels of the output, where are the key predictions are required to be taken into the account. The stress level is the highest one, and the other is that the social media usage, sports prediction, sports participation, because when you are playing state level or national level, you will not be getting the sufficient time to study in the class. So that would be that you will not be able to compete with the other one who is constantly studying in the class and attending the class and sitting in the library and making his notes. So in that case, the vast variations and the distractions is there. In that case, If someone who wants to keep the balance and requires some sort of the help, in that case, this predictive model would be better to give them the better suggestive model, so that they would not be able to go in the depressions, and they would not be distracted with the other non-serious part of that activities, where they may be indulged in the other non-acceptable activities. Now, in this, the box plot gives the better representations for the average analysis of the range, where the performance of this person can be easily evaluated. So in that case, the mean is that values which we are getting, and in that case, the output of that is there, where the majority of the students are nearly around that 50%, which are good in the average case, but some of them are having this higher in the bad type of the categories, which are still indulged in that. The excellent is nowhere. That implies that further we require to make our data corpus better enough so to get the better predictive output. So in summary, I would say that having such type of the software